YouTubers. So in case you didn't catch it in the last video, I pretty much got everything right down to where I wanted it to be concerning this motor and the way it cooled, and the valves were adjusted, and she was running pretty good. And I was thinking, well, maybe I can put a radio in it now, and maybe the next thing I can do is the power brakes and the power steering. And then she started knocking. Now let me tell you, it's a steady little puck, 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 puck every time it goes around, which tells me it's more than likely where a piston rod meets up with the crankshaft, and it's starting to go bad there. Now I've known people to drive a car for a long time knocking, being very careful with it. But in reality, you don't want to drive a car that's knocking, because eventually it's gonna get worse, and it could wind up sending a, well, we raced a car one time, and we had a piston come through the side of a motor. That probably knocked for a few laps before it disintegrated into a gazillion pieces. But we don't want to do that. The engine that's in here, and it's not the whole engine, it's the centerpiece. We call it the short block. It's the engine. It's the place in here where the crankshaft and the camshaft is at, and all the lifters. And of course, then you have the heads on top of that, which have the valves in them, and the push rods. And push rods meaning rocker rods, rocker arms, and all that. So what has to be replaced is the heart of the engine. I just happen to have one. There's a race car driver up in Maine named Kevin, and Kevin had a 1969 Super Sport 350 370 horsepower engine. It's called it a Nico engine, which is an engine that they only made a few of that had a higher nickel content. They made them for very high performance cars. And he has had one, and he wound up buying a crate motor and offered to sell me that engine, and I bought it. This has been, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. It was with me in the flood, and it's with me still. It's down in that back garage. And it is basically the heart of an engine, except this engine, which is a 73 Chevy, is the engine that came out after they changed the compression ratio and basically turned the high performance engines into low performance engines. They did all that for the sake of supposedly saving gas, which I'm not even going to get into, because that's a discussion that I don't want to have. But anyway, it wasn't a good time to be a hot rodder in America, we'll just say that. But having one of those engines, that's really, 1969 is the high point of the classic muscle car. That's when everything was as fine as it was ever going to be. And everything after that, as far as muscle cars go, pretty much went downhill. You got fat bumpered cars because the government required it. You got low compression ratio cars because the government required it. You got a bunch of junk that guys didn't want because the government required it. So just to have a 69 Chevy high performance block is pretty awesome. And I just happen to have one sitting right here on my engine stand. Maybe I can get some light back here. Now I will say this, it's a 2-bolt main engine. Now at a certain point, Chevrolet turned their 2-bolt main engines into 4-bolt main engines because they wanted a stronger block, one which the crankshaft wouldn't go flying out of. Of course, also at a certain point they started making engines that were really low performance engines. So, you know, the 4-bolt main was, yeah, it was a nice theory, it was a nice idea. People took those blocks and built them into other things. But in reality, you know, I would rather have a 69 2-bolt main high performance Chevy engine than a 4-bolt main low performance Chevy engine. And this is what this is here. Now it's pretty filthy. Like I say, it was in the flood. But what Kevin had done to this is he had put rings and inserts and mains in it and never torqued them down. So he had this pretty much all rebuilt and ready, but not quite there. And so what I can do is take this up there, take it apart, clean it up, inspect everything, put it back together, torque everything down, and then take everything that's on that engine up there and put it on this engine here. Oh, the joy. And what I'll have when I get through is kind of what I originally wanted. I didn't really want that other motor, but it was available, and I thought it would be good. But my preference at the time was I was going to put this motor in that car. So I go back to that plan. I'm still going to put this motor in that car. It's just going to mean that that car isn't going to be on the road for a while. And I'll probably park it for a while because I also have a nice set of Fuelie camel hump heads that have already had the work done on them that you need to do to put new seals, not seals, to put hardened seats in the valves so that they'll run on the kind of gas that we have in today's world. Used to be that gas had nickel in it, and they started running, no, it had lead in it, and they started running unleaded gas. Unleaded gas wasn't good for the engines. You needed hardened, steel hardened valve seats to run unleaded gas. Nowadays you can't even, you can get non-ethanol, but you'd have to just about go to an airport and buy airplane gas. I'm not even sure if that's leaded gas anymore. It may not be. So anyway, there's a lot of little factors there, which the bottom line is I'm not going to be driving the Rambler right away. Hopefully Bo will come get this truck pretty soon. I'll get that motor out. I'll take it up there and I'll start tearing it apart. Let the Rambler sit here until I get that one ready, and when that one's ready, I'll pull the engine out of the Rambler, take all the parts off that motor and put them on this motor, and then put that back in the Rambler. And then I should have, because I'll have a higher compression ratio, I should have a lot more horsepower in the new engine than I have on the engine that's in there. So that's what's going to happen next with that. Now, having said all that, today I'm going to go to the metal yard with my buddy Bobby because he's got some things he wants to get rid of, and he's got some things he wants to get. So I'm just waiting for him to get woke up and get some coffee and breakfast in him. And in the meantime, what I may do is just go down here to the banjo shop. I've got some projects underway right now. One of them is the Rosa Hopkins banjo, Marvel Mystery Old banjo, and so yeah, I'll probably do that. And if Bobby calls and he's ready to run to the metal yard, we'll do that. I'm thinking about buying, I guess I could show you. I'm not sure what it costs to buy one of these racks. I believe these racks are what they mount zero-turn lawnmowers on, and a lot of places will just take the stuff in for scrap metal. But I believe I could use the metal out of some of those racks to make a roof for my little metal building that had been working on down here that I was going to make into my saw room. So we might go over to the metal yard and get some of that today. So while I wait for Bobby to come around, I'll go down here to the banjo barn and we'll piddle about with some banjo related projects. No matter what we're doing here, I appreciate y'all hanging on and hanging out with me. Apparently y'all have an ability to put up with my useless jibber jabber. Every day I have something to talk about, and none of it makes the evening news, and none of it makes the headlines, and none of it creates a situation where people want to flock to my website to see what I'm going to say next. because I'm not that guy. I'm the guy walking around in his yard with a few projects that won't make your blood pressure go up. Oh, the joy. By the way, did I mention it's a beautiful morning here today? Just look at it. Oh, the joy.